Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. So we're jumping back into Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. Got my thinking cap on, ready to tackle another one of these laws. This time it's Law 12.
This one is called Use Selective Honesty and Generosity to Disarm Your Victim.
Yeah, disarm your victim sounds a little intense, right?
A bit jarring, yeah. But like we always say, the point isn't to turn into, you know, master
Right,
manipulators.
it's about understanding the game being played, so to speak. So Law 12, how do honesty and generosity, which we usually think of as good things, become tools of power?
Well, Green's argument basically boils down to this. People are naturally drawn to authenticity. When someone is unexpectedly honest, especially about a weakness or something they don't have to reveal, it makes them appear more trustworthy, more relatable.
Okay, so it's like they're dropping their guard
Yeah. And without even realizing it, we tend to drop ours too.
because we're not expecting it.
Hmm.
It throws us off balance a bit, makes us more susceptible to whatever comes
Yeah,
next.
exactly. And Green uses this really vivid analogy of the Trojan horse. On the surface, you see honesty, something positive that you let your guard down for. But hidden inside is the potential for influence or manipulation.
Wow, okay, I see where he's going with this. And this ties into the psychology of how we perceive people, right?
Absolutely. Our brains crave consistency. When someone we thought was guarded or strategic suddenly becomes vulnerable, we scramble to reconcile that. Often, we end up viewing them as more trustworthy because of it, even if that honesty was strategically calculated.
Fascinating. So it's about playing on those inherent biases we all have.
Right.
Okay, now let's talk about the generosity part of this law. What's Green getting at there? Because I don't think he's advocating for like random acts of kindness just for the heck of it.
No, definitely not. This is about calculated generosity. Small strategic acts of giving that, while seemingly selfless, actually create a sort of unspoken debt.
It triggers that reciprocity thing, right?
Exactly. We're practically wired to want to return favors, even if they're small. Think about it. Someone at work constantly brings in coffee, then one day they need help with a project.
You almost feel obligated to help them out.
Exactly. Or someone gives you valuable information or advice that they didn't have to share. You might not consciously realize it, but those acts build up a sense of indebtedness.
Which they can then leverage later on. Okay, so timing is key here, right? It's not about constantly showering people with gifts or favors.
Right.
Because if it's predictable, it loses its power.
Absolutely. It's like the boy who cried wolf. If someone is always trying to disarm you with honesty or generosity, you start to see through it. But a well-timed act, especially from someone known to be strategic, carries much more weight.
It's almost like they're strategically making themselves appear vulnerable, which in turn makes us lower our guard even more.
Exactly. And Green actually calls this calculated vulnerability. By revealing a weakness, admitting a mistake, you might appear less threatening, which can lead others to underestimate you.
They might even think they have the upper hand.
Right. But in reality, you're playing a much deeper game. And Green provides some interesting examples of this, like how mafia bosses would often donate to their communities.
Which seems counterintuitive at first, right? Like, why would these powerful, often ruthless figures engage in acts of charity?
Because it wasn't just about altruism. Those acts were calculated to solidify their power. By appearing generous and concerned for the community, they were actually strengthening their control over it.
And building loyalty, probably.
Precisely.
It's amazing how this plays out in so many areas of life. We see politicians doing it, business leaders, even influencers on social media.
It's all about understanding those underlying psychological principles and then figuring out how to use them ethically, of course.
Right, right. And there's a big emphasis on ethically because, like with any of these laws, it's a slippery slope. Green even cautions against, overusing these tactics,
I think
right?
it does. Because when you think about it, if your honesty feels staged or your generosity feels forced, people will pick up on that. It loses its power.
So it's not about being manipulative.
It's about being aware.
Yeah. The real power of this law is recognizing these tactics when they're being used so we're not caught off guard.
Exactly. So as you go about your week, pay attention to how people use honesty and generosity in your own interactions.
Oh, that's a great challenge. Do you notice any patterns? Think about the people who are particularly influential in your life.
Right. Are they using some of these tactics, even subconsciously?
Food for thought, right? All right, that's a wrap on Law 12. We'll catch you all next time for another deep dive into the 48 Laws of Power.